When we look at the world today, the United States stands as one of the most powerful nations on Earth. But this wasn't always the case. Just a few centuries ago, America was nothing more than scattered colonies clinging to the edge of a vast, unknown continent. The journey from those humble beginnings to global superpower is filled with ambition, struggle, innovation, and moments that changed the course of history. The story begins in the early 1600s when European settlers arrived on the shores of what would become America. These weren't wealthy aristocrats or powerful armies at first. They were families seeking religious freedom, merchants looking for opportunity, and adventurers dreaming of a fresh start. The land was harsh, the winters brutal, and survival itself was a daily challenge. For over 150 years, 13 colonies grew along the eastern coast under British rule. People farmed, traded, and slowly built communities. But across the ocean, Britain saw these colonies merely as a source of wealth and resources. Heavy taxes came without representation in government. Frustration grew into anger, and anger grew into revolution. In 1776, something remarkable happened. A group of colonists declared their independence, stating that all people deserved certain rights that no king could take away. This wasn't just a local rebellion. This was the birth of an idea that would reshape the world. After years of war against the most powerful military of that era, the impossible happened. The colonies won their freedom and became the United States of America. The early years of independence were uncertain. The Founding Fathers created a constitution that balanced power between different branches of government. They established rules that could adapt over time. This wasn't perfect from the start. Many people, including enslaved Africans and women, had no rights at all, but the framework was there for future generations to expand freedom. The young nation began to grow. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson made one of history's greatest real estate deals. For just $15 million, America purchased the Louisiana Territory from France. With one transaction, the country doubled in size. Suddenly, there was room to expand, to dream bigger, to push boundaries. Americans developed a spirit of manifest destiny, believing they were meant to stretch from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. Pioneers packed wagons and headed west. They crossed mountains, rivers, and deserts. Towns sprang up where only wilderness had existed. By the mid-1800s, America reached the Pacific coast, becoming a continental nation. But expansion came with a terrible moral cost. As America grew, so did the institution of slavery. The southern states built their economy on the backs of enslaved people working in cotton fields. The northern states moved toward industry and opposed slavery's expansion. Tension mounted until the nation could no longer hold together. In 1861, the Civil War erupted. Brother fought against brother in the bloodiest conflict America had ever known. Over 600,000 people died. President Abraham Lincoln led the Union through this dark time, and in 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, beginning the end of slavery. When the war concluded in 1865, the nation remained united and slavery was abolished. This war transformed America. It settled the question of whether states could leave the Union. It proved that the nation could survive its greatest internal threat. Most importantly, it set America on a path, however long and difficult, toward equality for all citizens. After the Civil War, something extraordinary happened. America entered a period of explosive industrial growth. Railroads connected the East Coast to the West, creating a massive unified market. Telegraph lines allowed instant communication across thousands of miles. Factories multiplied in cities like Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Detroit. Inventors and entrepreneurs transformed everyday life. Thomas Edison gave us the light bulb and electrical power systems. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Henry Ford revolutionized manufacturing with the assembly line, making automobiles affordable for ordinary families. These weren't just clever gadgets. They were foundations of economic power. Millions of immigrants arrived from Europe, seeking opportunity in this dynamic land. They brought skills, labor, and determination. Cities swelled with population. By 1900, America had become the world's leading industrial nation, producing more steel, oil, and manufactured goods than any other country. For most of its history, America had followed George Washington's advice to avoid entangling alliances with foreign powers. The nation focused inward, building its economy and settling its vast territory. But by the late 1800s, America began looking outward. In 1898, the Spanish-American War marked a turning point. America defeated Spain and gained territories including Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. The United States was no longer just a continental power. It had become an imperial one with interests spanning the globe. When World War I erupted in Europe in 1914, America initially stayed neutral, but German submarine warfare and other factors eventually pulled the nation into the conflict in 1917. American troops, fresh and numerous, helped tip the balance. The Allies won, and America emerged from the war as a major creditor nation. European powers owed America billions of dollars. President Woodrow Wilson tried to create a new world order through the League of Nations, though the U.S. Senate rejected membership. Still, America could no longer retreat entirely from world affairs. It had tasted global influence and found it suited the national character. The 1920s roared with prosperity, jazz music, and cultural change. But in 1929, the stock market crashed, triggering the Great Depression. Banks failed, businesses closed, and unemployment reached 25%. Families lost their homes and farms. The American dream seemed shattered. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs put people back to work and created a social safety net. The government became more active in managing the economy. Americans learned that sometimes capitalism needed guidance to serve everyone, not just the wealthy. Then came December 7, 1941. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, killing over 2,000 Americans. The nation that had been reluctant to enter another world war was suddenly thrust into the deadliest conflict in human history. America mobilized completely. Factories that made cars now produced tanks and airplanes. Women joined the workforce in unprecedented numbers. The entire society focused on winning the war. American industrial capacity became the decisive factor. The nation outproduced all other countries combined, supplying not just its own military, but also its allies through the Lend-Lease program. By 1945, when the war ended with Allied victory, America stood as the only major power whose territory hadn't been devastated by bombing and invasion. When World War II ended, America possessed half of the world's manufacturing capacity. It had the world's most powerful military. It held the atomic bomb, a weapon so powerful it changed the nature of warfare itself. The British Empire was declining, European nations lay in ruins, and the Soviet Union, though powerful, had suffered devastating losses. America created institutions that would shape the post-war world. The United Nations, headquartered in New York, became the forum for international diplomacy. The Marshall Plan sent billions to rebuild Europe, creating stable democracies and markets for American goods. The Bretton Woods system made the dollar the world's reserve currency. But the Cold War brought new challenges. The Soviet Union, with its communist ideology, became America's rival in a global struggle for influence. These two superpowers never fought directly, but they competed everywhere else. In Korea, Vietnam, Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East, capitalism and communism battled for hearts and minds. America contained Soviet expansion through military alliances like NATO. It raced the Soviets to space, eventually landing men on the moon in 1969. It built an arsenal of nuclear weapons capable of destroying the world several times over. The stakes had never been higher. While military and economic power mattered, America's influence spread through softer means too. Hollywood movies played in theaters worldwide, spreading American values and culture. American music, from rock and roll to hip-hop, became the soundtrack of global youth. Blue jeans, Coca-Cola, and McDonald's became symbols recognized everywhere. Silicon Valley emerged as the birthplace of the computer revolution. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, and later Google and Facebook became global giants. The Internet, initially a U.S. military project, transformed how humans communicate, work, and live. America led the digital age just as it had led the industrial age. The journey wasn't always smooth or just. America made serious mistakes along the way. The treatment of Native Americans remains a dark chapter. Jim Crow laws oppressed Black Americans for generations after slavery ended. The Vietnam War divided the nation and questioned American judgment. Economic inequality grew, challenging the idea that prosperity benefited everyone. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, America stood alone as the sole superpower. But this unipolar moment raised new questions. What should American power be used for? How should it engage with a rapidly globalizing world? The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, and the subsequent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq showed the limits of even overwhelming military might. The story of how America became a superpower isn't simple or straightforward. It involved geography that provided natural resources and protection from invasion. It involved timing, with America rising just as European powers exhausted themselves through two world wars. It involved a diverse population constantly refreshed by immigration, bringing energy and ideas. It involved a constitutional system that, despite flaws, proved flexible enough to adapt across centuries. Most of all, it involved people who believed they could build something better. From farmers declaring independence to soldiers landing on beaches, from inventors in workshops to programmers in garages, from civil rights marchers to space explorers, Americans repeatedly pushed boundaries and reimagined what was possible. Today, America faces new challenges. Rising powers like China compete for global influence. Technology creates both opportunities and disruptions. Climate change, inequality, and political division test national unity. The future isn't guaranteed, and history shows that no superpower lasts forever. But understanding how America got here helps us navigate where it might go next. The journey from 13 colonies to global superpower took courage, sacrifice, innovation, and constant adaptation. Whatever comes next in the American story, that remarkable journey deserves to be remembered and understood. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you have some questions, feel free to ask in the comments section. See you in the next history video.